In this video, we're going to talk about just the basic concepts behind probability. So first of all, when you talk about probability, what it means for the probability for something to occur, what we're really saying is that we're looking at the likelihood that something will occur. And in this case, when we're talking about math, we say the likelihood an event will occur. So we refer to that something as an event, sorry. An event, will occur. All right, there we go. So that's what it means. Here, let me go ahead and put a definition in front of there because technically we are defining that. But really, in practical talk, when you're talking about the actual probability of an event, and here, I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of calling the event something, I'm going to call that event E. We'll talk about what that is in a second, what it means to say an event. Okay, so the probability of an event E, we can say is the total number of ways, E, that event can occur. Divided by total number of outcomes. And we do have a nice notation for probability. We use P and then we use parentheses E. So if you've taken some algebra, you might recognize that. That's like a function notation. But it just for us, we're going to say that's the probability of an event. All right. In this case, we've been calling the event E. All right, let's give some examples of events. Okay, so let's say we're going to flip a coin. All right, so we're flipping a coin. Let's say that the event, or what we're interested in, is what is the probability of getting heads? So in this case, then, the event, E, is that we actually get heads. All right. So if I want to find the probability of that, well, since there's on a coin only two options, that's the number of outcomes, okay? And one of the options is heads, and that's the only one. It's 1 out of 2 or 1/2. All right. Or if you want to write it as a percentage, that would be 50%. Okay, so let's look at another example. Let's say your teacher will randomly calls on someone or some student to answer their question. And let's say they're truly random. What is the probability they're going to call on you? And I need to also talk about the class size then. So let's say in a class of 20 students. All right. So in this case, the event is that you get called to answer the question. So the probability then is, well, there's only one way that's going to happen. They call on you out of 20 possible people. All right. If I wanted to write that as a percent, this ends up being 0.05 or 5% chance. All right. And let's do this example. Let's say, what is the probability you arrive home safely when driving your car or driving a car. Okay. Well, that changes things a little bit because we have a sense of what that is, right? It's this idea that you probably are going to be arriving home. Like you're not actually, if you're driving your car, actually thinking you're not going to get home, or even pretend if you don't drive and somebody else drives for you. Okay. Like maybe a sibling or something. You're not thinking that you guys aren't going to show up home unless your sibling's a terrible driver. Okay. But the idea is there are odds for how likely it is that you're going to get home. And the truth is they're very, very high. Okay. In fact, I looked them up. It's actually a higher than 99% chance. But let's just say it's a 99% chance you're going to get home. All right. That type of odds is what we call very likely. And we kind of have these expressions in probability. Very likely versus unlikely. Okay. Something being unlikely to occur. In fact, in our last problem here, it's actually unlikely you're going to be called on because the odds are only 5%. All right. Now, if they intentionally keep calling on people every day and go through everyone, all right, well, then that changes the odds. But that's not the way the question was asked. The way the question was asked, if they call on somebody randomly, what's the probability they're going to call on you? And out of 20 students, there's only a 5% chance of that happening. So let me define really quick what we mean by unlikely versus likely. Okay. So unlikely, really we're saying has a less than 50% chance of occurring. All right. Likely would then be, has odds greater than 50%. So more likely to happen. And then of course, actually I've used the phrases very likely, okay, or you could use the phrase very unlikely, right? That's talking about it being diminished even further, okay? Very likely 99% versus very unlikely 5%. I think that that'd be decent phrasing to add. Okay. Now, I want to go back to my first example and kind of notice in this case, technically the odds are equal that you possibly could get one of the two outcomes, heads or tails, right? So in that case, we call those odds equally likely. Sorry, my pen is acting up a little bit. Equally likely. So equally likely means each outcome has the same chance of occurring. Okay. For example, if you were to draw a card out of the deck, right? A single card out of a deck. The idea is, if I'm going to guess which card you're going to get, technically every card is equally likely. They all have the same chance that they're going to be drawn. So when you draw a card out of the deck, it's 1 out of 52 chance you're going to guess it correctly, because every card has a 1 out of 52 chance of being guessed correctly. All right. Those odds are equally likely. In fact, when you're thinking about it, that works the same here in your teacher problem, because each student has an equally likely chance they're going to be called. Everybody's probability is equally going to be 1 out of 20. Okay. However, I don't think that there's equally likely odds when we're talking about driving a car. I mean, I even made a joke about what if your sibling drove badly. There's definitely some people who have higher odds of crashing. Okay. But the idea is that when it's equally likely, it doesn't have to be split in half. It could just be that they have equal probabilities of occurring. And there you go.